Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode, the first episode of 2021 of the Final Gravity Podcasts. Welcome all. I am your host, Cousin T. With me, as always,
the Viking Peaches. What's up? Welcome to the new year.
Welcome indeed, and CJ the Groovy Bear. We're here.
Oh boy, we finally done did it. We finally done did it. We put 2020 behind us.
Fucking A.
It's gone.
Knock on that wood real hard. Let's not
Felicia.
count our chickens until they lay.
Dude, it's gone.
2020 is gone. We have things to do to make 2021 much better.
Yep. It's not just going to naturally be better.
It does not just happen overnight. But we can work on it. We can try and stay positive.
It's got to be a way. It's got to be a way. Like, everyone was pushing hard and, like, headstrong coming into 2020. Like, this is going to be my year. And everyone got bent over blind.
I saw a lot less posts like that coming into 2021 than
yeah,
I
saw one that was just like, hey, listen, when we get to 2021, just calm down, relax, walk through the door nice and gently, keep your head down, and don't touch anything.
Sales of those really inspirational posters have gone down, too, and we're getting more like the reality poster. And so the one where it's like, it can always get better. It's like, hey, it might not. Just take everything with a real grain of salt and some precaution when you say, oh, man, this is going to be my year. Well,
if you want it to be your year, you have to be willing to put in the work to make it, so.
Damn right. And that's one of the points that we've all had a conversation about off air is how fucked 2020 was, but how much good came out of it. Like, so much creative power came out of 2020, like, just because everyone was sitting home and they found hobbies to keep themselves busy over time. So, people start woodworking or making podcasts or doing this or doing that. Like, they found ways to keep themselves busy at home. I mean, we did pretty well with this podcast through the COVID thing, and then I started a whole another podcast talking about nerd shit. I was like, I can't sit still anymore. I have to do something, and I feel like a lot of people did that also, and it created a lot of artistic energy on the planet because so many people were just like, whatever that hip-hop song is where he talks about, like, you always become creative and savage as fuck when, like, you become hungry. You know what I mean? Like, people just sitting home with nothing to do. Like, they get hungry after a while. I'm like, I got to do something. People found all these weird hobbies that they may have had in the past or didn't know that they were a fan of that hobby in the first place. And now just so much creative energy, outside of all the bullshit that happened with shutdowns and people losing jobs and unemployment and our screwy-ass government that went sideways. All right, I'm done.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of, I like to make a lot of jokes about how much 2020 sucked, but realistically, I kind of came out of it ahead of where I was at going into the year. There's definitely some things I still want to work on and some change that still needs to happen.
And that's exactly the point that I'm making is, like, you put your head down and revamped, like, your YouTube channel and your Enjoy Everyday website and your photography website. Like, you did all the shit that you may not have done otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit, I learned how to use a video editing program. I hate that shit. Lighting and video have not ever been my thing when it comes to, like, engineering things, like audio, sure. But I forced myself to sit down and learn how to do all this stuff, albeit I've been, chewing on Josh's ear for the last, 3 weeks to be like, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do that?
As long as you were doing it from 6 feet apart. That's all I ask.
Well, it's probably like 1,600 miles. Wait, how far away are you? 600 miles? You just Yeah, well, I would say you just did the drive 6 months ago, but 6 months ago was a fucking shit show. So
no, that was dude. No, it's been like 9 months now, man. That was March.
It still hasn't been that long of a period of time.
Mm-hmm. It has.
It just, yeah. That's exactly where everyone's head's at. Anywho, now that we've
Anywho,
gotten through all of that, we are here on the second block of season 2, doing Plato 1, our tasting episode. This week we decided to do Oskar Blues because,
631 miles.
see, yeah, it's close. So Oskar Blues Brewing, we went with those this week because, god damn it, they make good beer. And we all felt like it was time to review this stuff. So Josh picked up a variety pack. There it is. And CJ and I put together our own variety pack because we couldn't find the same one. Yeah.
Out of state beer is tough up here. It's tough up here.
For how many times we have mentioned that, how hard it is to get beer on this in this state, regardless, through the whole shutdown, how much harder it's even been.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely impacted it.
You know, even talking with like the local bottle shop owner, he's just like, yeah, dude, it's tough to even get shit here. He's like, we just kind of have to roll through what we got.
Yeah.
We get what the distributor can give us.
And it's understandable. The primary problems were there long before this national tragedy happened, and just that, Josh can relate certainly from being there right now, and you can relate by being there. But I moved out here from Oregon, where you can get beer from halfway across the world, and it's
much beer.
It's not a thing. And out here, getting something as significant as an interesting rotator from an Oskar Blues or a Cigar City or something like that, that's a big fucking deal because you just can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And on the same end, I applaud the idea that that's for celebrating locality. Like, we have great local breweries out here. I'm really proud to be a part of that community. But you don't see you never really see a drop in local sales of craft beer when you also expand your base of interesting beer from out of state. You just see a higher purchasing in beer in general, and so it's a weird thing for me. But obviously, this is going to be fun to put together this episode and for us all to again. I think this will only be the second or third episode we've been able to taste. Well, it'll be about the third or fourth, I guess, episode.
Third or
Where
fourth.
we've been able to taste all the same beers together.
Yeah.
And it's close to
It's been quite the process of trying to get all that together.
You have to do some scavenging out here.
Or spend $40 in shipping.
Yep.
Which, that was fun. That was worth it. Those beers were delicious.
Those were some good beers.
So tonight, if you saw the Instagram post that we put up earlier today, there are 2 other beers that we will not be tasting this evening, which will be the Old Chub and the Mama Pills, which we will get around to on the following episodes. But tonight we are going to taste on the One IPA, their 100-calorie, low-cal, low ABV beer, followed by the Dale's Pale, the standard staple of Oskar Blues, and then the Can-O-Bliss, which there are several versions of. We got the citrus, because there's a tropical and another, I believe, for whomever one of us has the information pulled up.
I do not have that, but I know, yes, there's 3 different versions of the Can-O-Bliss. We got the citrus Can-O-Bliss, which is pretty easy to find out there. It's delicious.
Let's crack these open and let's get into it. Let's get into the beer talk.
Let's do the thing. Let's do the damn thing.
Cracking a 1-y.
People are paying us on Patreon now to talk about beer, so we got to make sure that we talk about beer.
Thousands upon thousands of dollars rolling into this
Huge
podcast.
shout out to Blind Brew Guy, aka Fred, on Instagram.
Fred,
he
thank
is
you.
Our first Patreon subscriber. So Fred, you rock. We love you. Thank you for the support. Thank you for always commenting and engaging on our posts and such.
Yeah, the feedback is very much welcomed. We love that you interact with us because it only is going to make the show better over time.
Indeed. So cheers to you, Fred.
Cheers to you, Fred, our first official Patreon subscriber. Here's to you, buddy. Thanks. Man, this is just hazy straw golden.
Yeah.
Hazy straw.
Super hazy.
Kind of a little, just a little bit of yellow. Just nice little neon yellow there.
Yeah, a little bit, depending on the lighting in your room.
We're not in a professional studio. We're in my living room.
No, we're working on that. We're working on that.
We're working on it. Hey, I'm in my dad's office, so
That's
I
right.
get it.
One of these days, I'm gonna buy a house and I'm gonna build a studio in it, and it's
One of
gonna be
these
dope
days,
as
my
shit.
brother's gonna buy a house, and I'm gonna rent an office space in it.
God damn it.
Good head retention. Good lazy head.
Oh, yeah.
So I just checked I don't know how old yours are, Josh. I checked the date pack on ours, and this is this can is 1, 2. It's 3 months old to the date. 4 months. No, 3 months old to the date. You got 9-1 on that.
I got 1105.
You got 1105.
Oh,
So
so you got some newer stuff.
You got a fresher can than we got for sure.
Yeah.
And again, that's kind of the crux of finding beer in Montana.
Interestingly, though,
I like the little tagline
mine
on
did
the
not
bottom.
have the head retention that yours guys' did.
Dissipate it out real quick.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Did you
I wonder
notice
if
I'm still hanging around.
on the bottom of the can?
it's 1E WON-E.
No, I don't even have that. It says "Show me the 1E," but it's underscore. So like instead of "Show me the money," they put in a blank spot and the name of the beer.
Mine just says 1E. Mine doesn't say "show me the."
Yeah, check. I don't know if
That ain't gonna. There's. Well, you might be able to do it.
I don't know if I can get that close enough for people to see. But right up there it is.
Oh, yep, there it goes. Show me the 1E.
There we go.
Look at that.
That's pretty fun. I wonder if you obviously got a whole different brew if this is 2 months later.
Yeah.
Canning
I mean,
date.
well, I mean, in theory, yeah. I mean, it's we're going to judge it as if it's the same, but obviously, there's definitely going to be some variation because of the way things hold up in packaging. To be sure.
There isn't much description on the can about this beer, but it's a 100-calorie hazy IPA, 4% alcohol by volume, 12-ounce can.
What's the does it say the IBU on it?
It does not.
It's not. I will do
It's got a really nice. At least my can's got a nice little lemony smell. There's some feelings like obviously a little bit old can, but I'm not getting any oxidation.
No,
Really nice kind of tart lemon smell.
I mean, I would
lemon
say
lime.
Standard can smell. Yeah, little bit of metal, little aluminum. But the beer itself, yeah, that smells like lemon and grass. And I don't mean lemongrass. I mean like lemon and fresh cut grass.
Yeah, I get lime peel for sure. I get
I was gonna say a lot of lime, like almost the
yeah.
lower-
Almost bending toward antiseptic for me, but not in an unpleasant way. But not, you know what I mean? But like, so it's like it's just, it's not. It's
See,
just,
I taste that more than I smell.
lime oil is what's coming across very much to me right now. It's very very oily.
Yeah, I get that more on the tongue than I do on the nose.
Taste is really nice and just
Yep.
cleanly bitter.
Yep.
Super dry.
A little bit of a linger. Not too
It,
bad on
it
that.
finishes with just a nice clean West Coast bitterness
Mhm.
to me. I really like that. I mean, certainly, not aggressive bitter, but I mean, just a lingering. The last flavor I'm tasting is bitterness, and that's not a bad thing in this format. It's actually really refreshing.
This is a delicious beer, and it still, even after time, like
I'm trying to figure out, and I think you guys can help me. I know my palate is a little bit shot after last night's New Year's Eve whiskey extravaganza.
That's right. This is a New Year's
Is
Day
it a
tasting,
drier
so-
beer on the back end, or is my mouth just feeling really dry from
no.
hangover?
I get that too. I definitely get a drier.
It's drier, and I'm going to go ahead and foray into why that is for a number of reasons. First of all, it's a low alcohol beer, which those are usually a little easier to dry out. They don't leave behind as much residual sugar. Also, the idea behind making a low-cal beer, for any beer nerds that are listening, Ken, what's up, dude? This one's for you. You got to be less than 4% alcohol. You have to attenuate out most of your sugars because the primary things that are contributing calories to beer are alcohol, sugars, and residual carbohydrates. So you can't really make this new concept that's especially been, as any new concept is, brought into the IPA world. You can't make a low-cal IPA at 6%. You just can't do it. That much ethyl alcohol provides caloric influence as well. So low calorie beers need to also essentially be cleanly fermented session beers, which is what we have here. So
Yeah.
it's definitely dry. And and I guess what I was saying about that is not just for the fact there's no sugars, not just it's also for the fact that they have to balance everything out by there's not a lot of other things to back up that dryness. There's no left. It's just it's bitter and there's nothing left in it, and it's just very mouth-coatingly dry.
So with them all having to be around 4%, what you're saying is this new fad of low-cal beers is right up Utah's alley. They should really be taken off with this one.
And essentially, they've always been doing it, right? In theory, they've always been doing it. That's one of the funny things where it's like, it's like when the session beer came out. There's a whole subsect of countries that can be like, yeah, we've always brewed session beers. That's all we've brewed.
Right.
That's what we brew. That's what beer is to us. For us, obviously, with the IPA, it's a marketing game for sure. But going back to the beer itself, and speaking on the fact that we're drinking it, a little bit older than normally a packaged IPA I'd like to drink. It's tasty. A lot of citrus, a lot of bright, vibrant yellow and green citrus, and then a good bitterness on the palate. Little thin on the body, but that's to be expected at 4%.
Yeah, especially on a low-calorie beer, where you're losing a lot of that body because you're sacrificing caloric content.
There's something a little soapy in the flavor as I continue to drink it. It's not unpleasant. There's just something that's like floral, and maybe it's combining with that.
A little lavender?
Yeah, something like that. Lavender or bergamot that's kind of combining with the lime.
Yeah.
To make it a little soapy, but it's not unpleasant.
Well, I also use like this lavender soap to like wash myself, so there's like this residual lavender smell on my body at the moment, and it's kind of actually accentuating what you're talking about.
I'm not going to on air suggest that your body odor is accentuating the beer that I'm drinking.
Listen, not your drink, mine. I don't give a shit.
That's not.
But like, I can smell myself. I mean, I'm not talking about you.
I'm
talking about
comfortable
me.
with the way that you smell, but
God.
I'm not gonna. I'm trying to enjoy this glass of beer right here.
I smell like I normally would.
Yeah, Josh, what kind of
beer.
soap did you use before this thing, so I can imagine it as I take my next sip?
Dude, you can't say that that's not going to be a factor in
It
the way.
absolutely, of course, it's a factor. Of course,
damn
it's
it.
a factor.
I can't with
But
these two.
I'm also gonna never swear off teeing off on that shit if you bring it up.
The thing that keeps jumping into my mind, if you take a Mexican beer and you squeeze your lime into it, how after a while, like those last few sips in the bottom of it with the rind right there, you get a lot of that kind of lime rind flavor,
citrus,
right in the bottom of it, especially with like a Mexican beer because there's so little flavor there that just dominates it. I get a lot of that on like the back end of this one.
Your backwash.
Yeah, the lime backwash.
Yeah. that last little bit of beer that I don't purposely drink because it's mostly backwash at that point. I'm like, nah, I'll get a fresh one.
No suds left behind, man.
That's right.
Even if they were made by yourself.
Yep. No suds left behind.
Even if they were made by you.
This is a tasty beverage. If I want this,
I would crush this on a river.
I want this on a river. I want this mid-summertime, and I want this a little bit fresher, obviously, but that's nitpicking.
See, I wouldn't go full summer with it because I feel like that mouth dryness is not going to lend itself to like a hot day, but like a nice warm spring afternoon, like mid-May,
I can
early
totally crush
June.
I think what I was thinking.
Two more cans of this sitting in the fridge, and I'm pretty certain those are going to find their way into my backpack and on the mountain.
That's a mountain beer for sure.
Mountain beer for tomorrow.
It's a really good ski beer because, like, you don't want something that's like a 6% that you're chugging on the chairlift because then you're going to get way drunker way quicker. You want something that's a little bit lighter, but it has a fuckload more flavor than Rainier, so.
Damn right about that.
Yeah, and it's honestly got the body of the beer equivalent of a hard seltzer. It's really nice. It's like
I could
not
drink it quickly on a chairlift and not get too drunk.
It's spritzy. It's very spritzy. I mean,
yeah, like an accentuated carbonation on this for sure.
So
I did notice that as I was pouring it in, the carbonation, it was like there was a lot of carb.
Even without the head retention, you still get a lot of carb on the tongue. Just a lot of like.
Yeah.
A lot of
because
bubbles
his
around
is
the
newer.
glass.
It's also easier to flush and homogenize CO2 into lower alcohol beers too. Harder to carbonate liquids with higher alcohol contents. It's almost impossible. I worked at a cocktail bar doing keg cocktails for a while, and I was the R&D guy. It's very, very hard to carbonate, if not impossible, like spirits. Like you can't make carbonated whiskey. There's too many other forces fighting against you there. So when you have a 4% beer for that rationale, it's really easy in anybody's bright tank or anybody's carbonation vessel to flush a good amount of CO2 in pretty.
Well, that's like people that make soda at home. They're just putting CO2 into water.
Right.
You know.
Which
Yeah.
is a very easy process
just-
if you have a few simple tools. So.
Mm-hmm.
Although there's some great videos out there on YouTube now where people will use those soda streams and try to like carbonate just random ass shit. And I have seen one where they tried it on whiskey, and you know, if you're drinking it right off of the carbonator, you can get a little bit of a carbonated whiskey, which sounds really interesting. But yeah, that carbonation goes away fast.
Yeah, it doesn't hold.
Could you imagine trying to set up like a draft system where like it carbonates as it pours?
I couldn't imagine trying, but I know people have done it.
That sounds so fucking arduous.
All for the betterment of beverage, I suppose.
It's like, well, yeah, because you keep it not exposed to any sort of outside contaminant until like you just pump it with CO2 right as it's coming out of the line.
Right.
But then you probably have inconsistency in carbonation and head retention probably through almost every single pour.
I mean, with
In
any
a way,
system,
that's like all soda machines carbonate the soda as it comes out. Because I mean, you start with that bag of syrup, and then you mix that in, and it carbonates through the CO2 tank whenever you pour a fresh soda.
That's true. But I mean, how many restaurants have you gone to where you've gotten a soda and it's been flat as fuck?
Well, that's just because they're bad at changing their CO2 tanks.
That's generally what you're doing
That's
there is
on them.
through an injection system, you're mixing a very concentrated flavor syrup into very highly carbonated water, and then what should come out of the disperser is a moderately carbonated sugary beverage.
Mm-hmm.
So two things are happening. The swirling process in that mixing is helping to flush CO2 into the syrup, but mostly what you're doing there is the release of CO2 is actually managing to flush the syrup into the already very bubbly water. What we're doing here with any kind of these style packaging is they're putting it into a tank and trying to homogenate CO2 into still alcoholic beverage. Higher the percentage, higher the protein content, the harder and harder and harder it gets to actually get that CO2 to stick in here. So I'm guessing that's contributing to why we have it's a pretty effervescent beer. Even for the head dissipating pretty quick. I don't know, Josh, is yours drinking pretty sparkly?
It's definitely drinking sparkly. Yeah, like there's definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely jumpy on the tongue for me.
And the bitterness is hitting it. That's the other thing is like making an IPA at 4% because the bitterness it's present. It's very smooth, but it's the last flavor I taste on this beer across the board, at least on this 3-month-old can.
I wish this beer was around when I was in college.
This would be a nice beer to have at the college times. Yeah,
it's just a
Because
good, easy drinking, like
It's 4%.
daily driver beer.
You can drink the shit out of it. You know what I mean? It's only 100 carbs or 100 calories. You know what I mean? So you don't feel like heavy if you drink 12 of them.
It's not bloating you up or anything. It's just
Well, I mean, with the amount of carbonation in here, I'm definitely fucking a little gassy.
well. I mean, that's the only issue with it as a ski beer this year,
Right,
because you're forced to wear your face mask. You're going to get a lot of those beer burps in your mask while you're skiing, and that's just gnarly. But you know, on a normal season where you don't have to wear a face mask, it'd be a lot better.
Oskar Blues, we will not discount you for the burpiness of this beer.
No, it's fine. I get another chance to taste it again. When it burps back.
It's definitely tasty. I think the low-cal beer is a super great idea for brewers. I've been, as a brewer, I've been very open about my jovialness about criticizing the hard seltzer movement. Not because I don't believe hard seltzer should be out there. I just think brewers, I've always said, should stick in your lane and make
the seal
beer
too early.
and whatnot. But this is a nice bridge of the gap for that because this is a beer through and through. But I love that it's light, and I love that it's refreshing and carbonic and bitter, and it has some of those really beautiful citrusy hop notes that kind of keep me coming back for another whiff and things like that. It's not just a straight crusher. And don't get me wrong, I've crushed some White Claws on a river. I got no problem with that.
Oh yeah.
But it's a beer through and through, and it is a beer that you can kind of sit there and work with a little bit too.
It's nice, and it's nice seeing that kind of. Like you said, it's a good way to bridge the gap because so many places just jumped on, oh, people are making hard seltzers and people are loving that, so we need to make a hard seltzer too. And I've had a lot of hard seltzers from smaller breweries that just kind of fucking sucked.
They don't hit the mark. They don't hit the mark
Like
for so many reasons.
yeah, like the big ones, like Corona and White Claw, like they do good hard seltzer. Truly, those are good. But like a lot of these small breweries that have tried their hard seltzers, it's just not in their wheelhouse. But making a low cal beer like this, that
Right.
shit works.
And that's the thing is
And
like I want brewers when they look at those projects to say there's many ways to make gluten-free beverages that aren't just somebody who came up with the White Claw concept did the fucking what they spent a long time getting their process to where it tastes the way it does.
yeah,
And I applaud them for that, and I applaud anybody who wants to jump on that bandwagon as well. But it's weird to watch someone who has spent a long time learning the loving processes of fermenting and extracting barley and wheat and grain to make their things, to then all of a sudden say like, we got to jump on that one too. And it's like, well, if you do, why not look at the dozens of ways to make gluten-free beer that are out there that are, yeah, and again,
Well, the only
I'm
ways,
not, knocking anybody for jumping on a train.
no,
But
no,
it's
well,
just,
I just personally know that the only way
do what
to
you
like
do.
ferment gluten-free beer is to either do it with like rice hulls or sorghum syrup.
You can do rice beers. You can do sorghum. There are enzymes out there that can bring your beer down to pretty close to
Oh yeah, there is that.
There's
Yep.
Brewer's Clerics now. There's a number of different enzymes that can help do that. There's, again, this is a much more laborious process, but really the process of natural souring beer eliminates a lot, if not all, of the glutamase left in beer because of how those bugs work. So it's there's things that can be done, and again, I don't begrudge anyone for going after something they really passionately want to make. But like Josh was just saying, I think a lot of brewers decided like, well, we have to do this to keep up with the times. And they don't go into it really wanting to make a good product. They go into wanting to make a product they can sell, and it reflects in the taste of that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a wonderful bridge of the gap between and if it's a gluten problem, obviously I can't guarantee that the Oney is the beer for you. But if it's just I like the flavor of this, but I want it to be lighter and more refreshing and less heavy. This is a fine beverage. This is a fine beverage. So
I'm a fan of it. I'm probably going to be picking up a lot more of this through the ski season for sure.
it's a good day-to-day adventure crusher. I'll give it that.
I feel like I've picked these up in the past, but I don't know if I've actually like taken the time to process it through like my beer tasting part of my brain.
Just like a quick happen to be the 6-pack that you grab and start
You're just
pounding
like,
when you get home.
this hasn't been on the shelf before. I'll just grab this on the way home. It's like, oh yeah, this is pretty good. And then you drink the whole 6-pack, and you're like, yeah, I'll get that again, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But well, that was a really good talk on the Oney.
It was a good beer. I had a lot of things to say about it.
Kudos and all the other things to Oskar Blues for a fantastic low carb hazy IPA. That's pretty fucking tasty for it only being 4% and low carb.
I'm into it.
I like it.
I'm into it.
I like
Nice
it.
work. Let's move on to the next one.
The classic.
I'm going to go grab my Dales real quick. I'll be right back.
Yeah, the Dale's motherfucking Pale.
So I don't remember if it was on an early episode of our show or if it was maybe when I joined you guys once or twice on a previous podcast. But we've talked before about Godfather and or very inspiring beers, craft beers that are just around for they've been around and they're around for a reason. When they came out, they were dynamite, and even to this day, whether they might not fit into the modern lexicon, they are still very important beers. And I'm just going to go ahead and remind our audience of, are we 9 million, Josh? Is that how many people listen these days? 9 million people?
I think we got up to 9.5 recently.
And thank you to those another 500,000 people who joined us. The Dale's Pale Ale is, I mean, it's a beast of a pale ale. It's people in certain parts of this country would argue it is the pale ale, just like certain people would argue Sierra Nevada or Mirror Pond. It is, and I went way West Coast on that, and I forgot there's a lot of East Coast beers that fit into that too. But the Dale's Pale is a beast. It's a workhorse of a pale ale.
I honestly, for me, the best pale ales have come out of the western side of the country.
I guess we don't get a ton of East Coast pale ales out here. It's just not a style that seems to make it very far away from where it's brewed. But
and not necessarily on the craft brew level, but on this commercial style level where Oskar Blues and Sierra Nevada and Lagunitas.
Yeah.
Like
La Genevoise.
yeah. There aren't. First of all, like we're 2,500 miles from the East Coast.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In a straight line.
Right. Well, and again, pale ale fell out of fashion, I think, too soon. There's a lot of breweries that make one for the tap room that no longer distribute. This is the one of the standard core lineups of Oskar Blues, and this is the flagship that most people know Oskar Blues for. And it's been well, God, Josh, this is probably one of my favorite ski season beers. And at a 6.5, it's a heady ski season beer, but this is usually something that I'll take up.
It's a good one for like your lunch break and
me.
after and stuff for sure.
Yeah,
I like keeping it a little lighter on the chairlift beers, but
yeah, it's just such a good pale. It's in the top 3 for me. And I mean, obviously everybody knows and this is in no specific order, honestly, but everybody knows, yeah, that's not going to work.
Would you mind passing me my Dale's Pale Ale can?
Sure.
Thank you so much. I'm staying on the mic. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
Stay on the mic.
Yep. I swear to God, I'm going to build a table for this podcast one of these days. But I mean, my top 3 come out of California, Colorado, and Montana. It's Sierra Nevada,
Dale's, and Myruka.
Yep.
There it is. Yeah.
I do love Myruka. I haven't had that one pretty much since I moved back to Bend.
Myruka.
Well done. That's Droughtworks, right? I don't want to get my breweries mixed up.
Yes.
Droughtworks.
Yep.
Well done.
Droughtworks, Draftworks, however whatever phonetics you want to, whichever way you want to pronounce it. But I mean, if I'm looking for standard drinking, it's Sierra Nevada. When I'm like, no, I want to get a little bit more tuned up tonight, it's Dale's. And when I'm like, damn, I want a super tasty pale, I go for that fucking Myruka.
Well, if my grown-ups taught me anything, I think Dale's is a super tasty pale too, so I guess we're about to find that shit out.
Yep.
I'm going to do my usual thing. I'm going to go ahead and check that packing date and see what we're looking with.
And mine was 11/15, and it also has a nice little note. It says, it's dangerous to go alone.
Nice. Nice.
No, I think the pale ale is just, I think it's an underrated thing. Like, everyone got so obsessed with the IPAs and starting to jack up all those hops, but I think 9 times out of 10, I probably reach for a pale over an IPA just because it's that much easier to drink. You're not getting that overly over the top hops in your face and stuff, and just a nice balance on it.
Now that is a good pouring beer.
Oh, look at that.
Gorgeous.
That is looking good.
What does the bottom of this can say?
We got 9 4s. So again, we're sitting about a month and a half to 2 months behind you, Josh. And look at that. Just look at the same brewery, same packaging. That's the consistency that we're looking at right there. Is that you guys are getting that stuff. There's no greater distance between you or us, but you guys are getting that stuff 2 months after we're getting it fresher.
Yeah, I got 9.
Packaged stuff. Well, 2 months younger beer.
9.
There's a few more people buying it here too, I think.
That's also fair.
Yeah, larger population, of course.
Yeah, you run out quicker. You got to reorder. So
the
you get
bottoms
more.
of our can say "Vote Dale's for 2020 Best Pale Ale."
Oh, must have been a competition going on when those ones got canned.
Yeah, what? 'Cause they shut down the GABF this year, didn't they?
No, they still held GABF.
Did they still? Okay.
It wasn't the same thing, obviously, but there were still, they still judged beer and they still held GABF.
Those judgy bastards.
Those judgy bastards.
Look at this. That is just.
It's what a pale ale should look like.
This one definitely has a bit more head retention on mine than the
yours
one
does. Yours actually holding and ours is a lot more stable foam too, less rocky.
Yeah.
Copper color, slightly orange.
Yeah, I was gonna say like a burnt orange.
Yeah.
Toasted
a lot more
orange.
clear. It's definitely not like anything hazy like the one he was.
This is a very classically looking American pale ale. It's probably got a backbone in some Munich malt or light crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add that structure and that little bit more maltiness. And that's, modern pale ales, like you were just saying, Josh, modern pale ales, they're really just more refreshing and lighter IPAs. But old school pale ales, the difference really was in
Oh my
a
God.
stronger malt backbone
Yeah.
and a little bit more structure and breadiness to back up hop profiles rather than just laying to waste the malt and just letting the hop shine through. This is through and through what an American pale ale should look like through most of the last 20 years.
Yeah, definitely.
It's so fucking good, dude. It's so good. The nose is light and floral.
It's a very bright drinking beer. It's just got that really nice. It's got all those kind of light characteristics that you look for. It's got that malt backbone, but it doesn't have like an overly heavy feel to it when you drink it.
That's a fucking good pale ale.
That's such a good pale.
The noses I can feel is a little diminished, knowing what goes into this hop wise than it should be for its age, but it's still got, like you said, a very light, crisp floral note to it. A lot of bread on the nose from what I'm gonna guess is Munich malt. A lot of crusty notes. A lot of
Could be a little bit of biscuit malt.
yeah, a little something toasty. There's definitely orange, both skin and flesh. It's a little stale, and whether that be the hop profiles themselves or
That
just the
could
age
be
of the
that.
beer.
That could be that crystal, that oxidation from that crystal.
It could be the malt profile that does it too. I mean, again, it's a slightly older can, but it's when you quaff it down, it does something that a lot of old beers don't do. Is it still shows a good amount of what it would taste like and should taste like. It's structured well. It's bitter. It's bracing, but it's malty. It's fun.
God damn it. It's such a good beer.
It's good. I love this beer.
I
never really. I don't know if I ever really drank Dales until I started hanging out with you, Thomas. Because being
You
here in
are
Bend,
welcome.
like it's so easy to get sucked into. Because there's so many fucking breweries here, just to drinking only the local beers around here. And Mirror Pond was my go-to pale ale always. Just grab it at Shoots, grab a Mirror Pond.
I mean, shit, if I lived in
then-
Oregon, it'd probably be the same thing for me, too. But then
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
I come from a state where craft beer only took off in the last 5 years, and I moved out here before that even happened.
Yeah.
So it was like
and then,
Yuengling
but
and
yeah,
Coors
when I
Light.
came out to Montana and was hanging out with you, and you just always had these around, and I definitely this beer. It's a Montana beer for me because that's just where I learned about it. And it always fucking love this one.
9 times out of 10, you can go into my fridge and find a pack of Sierra Nevada, Dales, or Myruka pretty much on a regular rotation.
It's a really nice blend of malt and hops on the nose, even for an older beer. I just want to point that it's a very
And props to your packaging for
for holding up for sure, and obviously bigger breweries like this usually got the equipment and the specs to do that, but I just keep coming back to the aroma, which is a lot of like lemon toast, just like really wonderful floral notes, and then like a little zip of citrus,
this
and then fresh bread.
This-
It's tasty.
Yeah.
This for me is this like the aromatics of this beer are the smells that even if I wasn't a craft beer nerd, like if I were to walk into a brewery, the aromatics of this beer would be the smells that I would expect to smell inside of that brewery. Like when you go in and it smells like
Smells like beer stuff.
it smells like beer stuff. It smells like malt, and it smells like fields of grain, and it smells like plant material, and
There's only a handful of pale ales I would put in the same category as being defined as just the very classic American pale ale, and it's almost something that is so classic that it's like other breweries. It's like we can't even cover this because they did this. This is them.
Yeah.
We don't have all the other classics that I would define. I would certainly put similar ones to you in there. I wouldn't forget about like Firestone Walker DBA or Deschutes Mirror Pond, but not having those in front of me, this is a fine American pale ale. And I don't say fine on the 50-50. I say fine as in this is a choice American pale ale. This is delicious.
This is a
If there was
great
two
beer.
holes in a board, I'd put it in the top one because this shit's top notch.
I, if I were to work on a pale ale tomorrow, I wouldn't necessarily rock it to 6.5, but I think there's something to be said about the alcohol strength that really comes up to meet the malt bill of this beer, and that
Yeah.
really defines the definition of what it is.
Hey,
It's,
my attempt at trying to make a Sierra Nevada clone ended up with a 6.7% American Strong Pale Ale that was pretty fucking all right,
yeah.
if I do say so myself.
It's a very well balanced beverage, and again, we are drinking an old can here, but
And we're not here to talk about my home brewing either.
yeah. Well, it's good to hear. It's good to hear about
We're
it.
here to talk about beer at the end of the day.
At the end of the day,
You know,
But yeah, that American Strong Pale that I made, dude, like a little bit of tweaking and some better equipment, and I would be
sure,
right in
blame
that
the
pale.
equipment.
I don't have access to like $100,000 worth of really nice equipment where I can like test the
Yeah.
concentration of my O2 levels in my beer,
It
and
makes
shit
a
like
difference.
that. Yeah, like I don't have that kind of shit.
I think,
But
Yeah.
damn it, man, one of these days I'm gonna come out of left fucking field and I'm just gonna be right in the runnings with everybody else for like, dude, this is a fucking delicious, easy drinking, standard, hardcore American pale ale.
yeah,
yeah.
I think
that will happen.
the easiest way, I think, to describe this beer, it's simple. This is a simple beer. It's not, I think it speaks volumes that so many people just try to put all these different flavors or all these other things into their beer. They try to focus on like one hop and like over accentuate that. This beer is just kind of a nice balance of everything that went into it. And there's not one thing that's over the top. It's just simple. And I think some breweries kind of forget that a good, simple beer sometimes is a lot better than whatever the fuck else they're trying to make.
It feels intentional. I think, and I think that's where you're going with simple.
Yeah.
Is that it just feels like very thought out through and through. It's as much of a classic now as it was then. There's a lot of classic beers that we've drank that while we still know they're classics, they don't always necessarily hold up to modern sounds and interpretations. I wouldn't put this one in that category. This feels as much of a hit as it was. This beer was released in 1999, I believe, so 21 years ago. It feels as much of a classic now as it
22?
was. 22, excuse me. We're in 2021, excuse me.
Depending on its release date.
Well, it depends on what Josh wrote on the clacker, really.
I changed it. It's 2021 now. We did not go to 13/1/2020.
What in conjunction with Josh was saying, like, yes, the beer is simple, but there is still a great complexity to the flavor profile in balance, between the malt bill and the hop bill and everything else.
I would agree with that 100 through and through.
Yeah,
Malt and hops together are blended perfectly.
It's probably a very simple recipe, but the complexities of the flavors of the ingredients that they decided to use to make this beer is what makes it a fucking dope ass beer.
I can tell you that from my knowledge, it is Comet hops, Cascade hops, and Centennial hops. They do not give a malt bill, but I'm going to go ahead and guess American Two-Row and Munich play a pretty big hand in this beer. And it's 6.5%. It's a super quaffable pale ale. So this is top
For the
notch.
color, it might even be like a Munich 20.
It could. I just think that style malt is definitely laying some serious flavor groundwork here because on the aroma and on the taste.
Yeah, big bready cracker.
Bread crust through and through. Pumpernickel.
Definitely.
Even like a little bit of like not rye, but just brown bread, right? Like just darker whole wheat bread, like really, really rich notes of
like a homemade whole wheat sourdough.
Sure. This is good. This is really good. Should we take what's that?
I want bread now.
Yeah, dude, I would love to eat an entire fucking sleeve of saltines right now.
Wow.
I mean, my mouth would be so dry afterwards. But
Way ahead of you on that one. My mouth is already fucking dry.
There's something to be said about eating saltine crackers, man.
I'd agree with that.
Love
Should we
good
take
saltine.
a quick palate cleansing break and get ourselves ready for our last beer? And
Yeah, I totally agree. So yeah,
Yep.
we're gonna on CJ's recommendation, we're gonna take a short little break, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna drink some of this Can-O-Bliss Citrus IPA after we all finish the beers that we're drinking
I'm
currently.
gonna drink all this Dales. I shouldn't, but I'm gonna drink all this Dales.
No
Honestly,
stars
bro,
left behind, man.
Tasty.
up until you know what I bought for New Year's Eve last night was a 6-pack of Dales. That's what I drank last night for New Year's Eve by myself.
I drank a lot of whiskey and champagne with my parents.
Nope, I was by myself. I'm like, I'm gonna go get a 6er at Dale's. I'm gonna hang out with my buddy JC while he DJs and crushes it on his live stream on Mixcloud
He did crush it.
with 50 other of my friends who were all in there watching the same thing. So it was like I was hanging out with people.
There you go. This is a weird year.
It was a very weird year. Very, very weird year. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to Final Gravity. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening up to this point. Hope you enjoyed the little musical break. And now we're going to get into the last beer of the evening from Oskar Blues, which is going to be the Can-O-Bliss IPA series. We've got the Citrus IPA. It's a dope-ass can. Date on the bottom says canned on 9/2, just same as all the others we've had so far this evening.
3 to 4 month mark. Josh, I bet
I
you
gotta
got a
pour mine before I can read it because I opened it before I looked at the bottom.
And the bottom of this can on our side says citrus. You feel us?
You feel?
I
you
don't
feel?
understand that reference. Is that just like citrus? You feel us? That's weak. Oskar Blues, get some better puns, dude.
Come on.
Who's doing your marketing?
Get better.
Fucking puns.
Did you hire Final Gravity to write up all the bottom of your can labels?
Again, I got an 11-12.
Yeah.
And
Wow, that's
this one is
amazing.
citrified bliss instead of certified. Citrified.
Citrified bliss.
You have
I
us
feel like
beat by
maybe in
2
between
months. Man,
September and November, they got a new guy doing the puns or something. I don't know.
somebody's trying just to slight it harder.
Someone's doing a little bit harder work.
This is like the perfect blend between color between the first one and Dale's. It's just, I mean, it's just
Yeah.
orange.
No, it's kind of right between, a little hazier than the last one.
Mine is real hazy. I mean, I almost can't see fingers through it. I mean, it's not milky. I wouldn't go so far as, but it's pretty
No.
cloudy.
It's pretty hazy.
It's pretty hazy. Pretty hazy.
Pretty
beer.
hazy.
This one has not quite as good as head retention as the Oskar Blues did for me,
See,
but
this one
better
has
than
even-
The Dale's,
20.
you mean the Dale's Pale?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
They're all Oskar Blues.
that's what
They're all Oscar Blues. Sorry, guys, we've
This
been
one's
drinking for
not
a
as
while.
good as the Oskar Blues we just drank.
This Oscar Blues isn't as good as the Oscar Blues we just had.
The Blues, the
I even
Oscars,
I
different
got
than
even more head retention out of this one. This one was super heady for me on the port, but I don't think
Mine's pretty active as well. But again, that's a month and a half difference, I think, in cans. 2 month
Yep.
difference in cans for sure.
and difference in altitude and all
Yeah,
sorts of shit.
That's also a good point.
possibly a slight infection causing overcarbonation, but I doubt it because this beer is.
These guys are on their shit.
Yep, their packaging is.
Well, that right there, that just tastes like a can full of bliss, if you ask me.
You damn right, dude. This is a super tasty. It's a very, hazy straw gold color. A little bit more golden color than the 1E.
Yeah.
Not quite as copper as the Dales, but holy shit. Another great flavor blend.
This is dank.
This is dank.
This is super tasty.
It's definitely I think out of the three of them, like I was saying with the 1E where that was a pretty dry beer, the Dales was definitely a wetter mouth feel. This one's kind of back on that dry end a little bit for me.
See, I get a little bit of both. I get a good complement between the two. I get a little bit of dryness like the 1E, but I still get that nice textured mouthfeel from the Dales, where it's a little bit more residual sugar.
There's definitely, I think, tasting all three of these, and I'm going to say it, knowing what all three of them are, there's a very clear way they like to structure the way their beers feel on the palate.
Yeah.
And kudos to that. It's all these beers have a very clear beginning, middle, and end to me.
Dude,
100%. They're not the same in any case, but there's an immediate intention on the aromatics. There's an immediate intention on the mouthfeel and the flavor, and there's an immediate, or at least a very clean precision on the finish. All these beers have finished appropriately to style, and they've finished in a way that I want another sip. And there is some flavor left, but there's nothing that's like, oh man, like I'm still sipping orange. It's like, no, it's like it's gone. But
After
it's
the last sip,
delightful.
it kind of goes away relatively quick. It
But
doesn't
it's still
linger
nice and
at all.
crisp. I'm still getting like a nice clean tingle and a nice clean refreshing feel on my tongue. This is a super good IPA. I mean, this is
It's
for not immediately stretching out and saying like, well, we're making a quote unquote hazy or juicy IPA. Again, we're drinking. This is from Colorado.
It's juicy, it's
juicy,
dry,
it's dry,
it's
it's
citrus, it's got a good malt body to it, it's got great aromatics. Holy shit.
This is all kinds of mandarin orange and pomelo and just every kind of citrus fruit to me that's not lemon, lime, or grapefruit. This is just all kinds of rich orange and other kinds of unique citrus.
On top of the mandarin orange, I also get like a clementine.
Yeah, anything in that family, honestly. Anything in that family that's just that very soft, ripe orange skin fruit.
Yeah.
This is all over the place. And it's followed again by that really, again, that middle is a pillowy, fun, sweet, but also bitter texture and flavor.
No,
really
everything's got like this
wonderful.
light, like bouncy effervescence to it. Like flavors are just kind of like hopping around on your tongue. You
Yeah.
know, like you
Yeah.
taste one thing on one side, you're tasting something on the other, and then they switch sides, and your back of your tongue is tasting something else, the front of your tongue is tasting something else. It's a very simple, like you said with the Dales, it's a very simple hazy IPA,
Yeah.
but it's also complex.
This is the
Kind of
cleanest
what
bitterness we've had all
it's
night. So,
what you expect out of a hazy. It's like
absolutely.
that is like if you're like, hey, what does a hazy IPA taste like? That's kind of you're like it tastes like that, but it's just
Yeah.
so well done in that endeavor.
If someone were to ask me, well, like, what beer would you recommend to break into hazy IPAs? I'd be like, go get yourself a Can-O-Bliss.
Yeah.
Go get a 6-pack of Can-O-Bliss and just hang out with those for a while.
Yeah.
While this is not, what I think spawned the New England and then later the hazy IPA movement, this is a break into beer for sure.
Yeah.
And this is an IPA that I would give to a lot of non IPA drinkers. To me, the bitterness is all right there, but they've just done a good job of backing up with everything else.
Yeah.
Everything else is going.
It's not like an overpowering bitter thing. There's still
No,
that nice lightness
but it's dry, like you said. It's dry and it's fun to drink.
Yeah.
7.2% alcohol takes us out of the day crusher for me. Which
yeah, no, this is definitely not a crusher.
And I know how I know it's almost impossible to make it do it. But if the 1E tasted like this at 4%, fuck.
See, you know what though?
I
think the 1E did a really good job of trying to take what the Can-O-Bliss is and make it 100-calorie 4%
and
beer.
that's not an easy feat.
Yeah.
Agreed. But that's where I'm a brewer and I'm a beer drinker through and through. Is that there's something about like that nice backup of that alcohol really rounds out some of these bright flavors and makes them very enjoyable and very very enjoyable over a long period of time.
Whoever Oskar Blues has pardon me, designing their recipes and calculating and coordinating their brewing process for each of the styles that we have drank tonight, you guys are just killing it.
Anyone working with hops at Oskar Blues, you've done a damn good job.
Well, just
I think
the combinations of the way that you guys have put different malt structures together and hop profiles together in just these 3 different beers, which are fairly standard Oskar Blues beers. Just
yeah.
the complexity of these beers for how simple they are. You don't find that in a lot of other large scale commercial breweries like you do Oskar Blues. Sierra Nevada might have that same kind of punch. Lagunitas, Boneyard, Deschutes, sure. But for the 3 beers that we've had tonight and how closely relatable the 3 are, but yet how different all 3 of them were, was absolutely incredible. Because I guarantee you there's probably a 40% crossover on grist and hop content, and everything else is just procedure and tweaks here and there. It's just like a little bit of a different malt here, a little bit different hop profile here, depending on timings and everything else. But, I mean, fuck. For a pale ale, a low-cal IPA, and a regular IPA, for how close those styles are and how vastly different these beers tastes. Oskar Blues.
Yeah.
Crushing it.
I think
standing O.
Right. I think something I never really noticed with Oskar Blues before, because I've never really sat down and been like, okay, I'm going to drink Oskar Blues tonight and assess multiple different beers from them. It feels like all their beers that we've had tonight just feel very methodical to me, right? Like it feels like they knew the end product that they wanted before they started the process, and they brewed with that in mind. And it to me feels like someone was sitting there doing little tweaks on small batches until they got it just exactly right, because they wanted, because like you said, CJ, they have that structured feel to each of them where there's like the beginning, middle, and end on all of them, and all of them are very much kind of the quintessential like Dale's is your pale ale. This is a hazy IPA. The One Eye is just so well done for what it's trying to be. Like it feels like everything that they did in like they don't feel like
Yeah,
kind of
these were
whimsical
not
like one
beers
off
that
like
were
let's
like
try
thrown
making
together on a
something
whim.
beers. They feel very intentional in
Yeah,
all of their
exactly. Like
flavors.
these were not beers that were thrown together on a whim. Like everything from design to production and implementation and everything else was so methodical.
Yeah. It's. I mean, obviously, I would hope that anyone who's brewing on the 100,000 barrel a year spectrum is not throwing anything together to whim, obviously. But the line that I saw through all these things, and I'll echo what you guys both just said, is just that they everything was methodical, it was intentional. These are really well designed beverages. They're really well designed beers. They really fit to style of what they're trying to go for. Obviously, again, Dale's has been around the block for craft beer lovers for 2 decades. It's that goddamn good. And both these other 2 beers are an old school brewery's really big footed step into modern brewing and keeping up with the times.
Damn it, I gotta pee again.
They're super tasty. He's peeing. We're gonna clap that shit out.
We don't need to line up that clap this time, CJ.
Oh. Well, 5, 4.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'd be curious to see their process for making a new beer, like when they started making the One Eye or the Can-O-Bliss, because obviously they've got this huge, large-scale facility for their production, and I have to imagine in that facility they've got a little room with a brewer who's just making small batches of something to try to tweak.
And all these guys have pilot systems that they're tweaking and they're working on calculation. Because the thing is, brewing, much like cooking, if you're making 5 gallons of tomato sauce and it says add 50 grams of fresh rosemary, and then you go ahead and you make 15 gallons of that same sauce, it doesn't necessarily mean you add 150 grams of rosemary. It doesn't necessarily mean you don't, but those equations are more exponential than they are logarithmic. And brewing is no different. If it takes a pound on a 5 barrel batch to make a pound of hops to make the right beer, on a 15 barrel batch, it doesn't necessarily mean it takes 3 pounds. So to achieve that same flavor and balance. So these guys, Oskar Blues, Firestone, all the big boys, they have pilot systems that there is one lucky ass brewer who just gets to every day be like, oh, I wonder if we just did this,
right?
And gets to release I mean, obviously it's not that simple, but they definitely get to like.
It's not that simple, but it's also not that complicated.
It's not that complicated.
It's not that simple, but it kind of is in some ways. Like at the end of the day, it's just brewing beer. Like that is their job. They get to make a tasty ass beverage that people fucking like to drink, and that's awesome. Right? It's like people who take skiing too seriously. At the end of the day, it's just fucking skiing.
Exactly.
In the words of a great American hero, Ryan Reynolds as Van Wilder, never take life too seriously. You'll never get out alive.
Yeah, it's I agree with that. I'll relate. It's funny when Josh said it because I related very much. This is like I was talking to somebody the other day, and it's like I really only started snowboarding 3 years ago. I went a couple times when I was in my teens, but started when I moved out here. And with the help of a lot of friends, including present company. And it's like when I go up there now, Josh, as a depressed person, I feel more close to your personality than anything else when I go ride because I don't ride to impress anybody but myself.
Yep.
I ride to just go out there and push it and have fun and learn a little thing or two, and it's not a competition amongst anybody.
I've always liked to say the best skier or snowboarder on the mountain. It's not who's going the fastest. It's not who's doing the best tricks. The best skier on the mountain is the one with the biggest smile on their face.
One that's having fun. One that's loving it.
Yep.
That's
what it's about. It's just being on a mountain, having a damn good time.
I agree with you. And from a craft brewing perspective, I feel like this whole team is having fun because these are some good canned beers.
These are all right.
These are super tasty.
Well, And that'll lead us into the last little segment for this evening.
Clapped in.
God damn it.
We're good to go. I totally understand this recording shit now.
He gets it. He gets it. He understands now.
Fucking assholes, the lot of you. Anyway, you guys getting paid from these 2 million viewers.
9.5.
Sorry, I got my numbers confused. But yeah, let's wrap this shit up. All right, overalls on the beers for the evening, CJ.
What do we do again? A 1 to 1,000 scale? What are we on?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I thought it was 0.5 to 7 1/3.
Actually, I think it was 0.3 to 7/8.
I don't do fractals, so you guys are nerds.
Fractions, not fractals.
The oney is super tasty. Save that shit for the summertime for me. Light, fun, citrusy, and not too heavy in any category. Dale's, classic, fucking classic. And actually, even at 3 months old in the can, I was actually going to make this my favorite beer until I realized how much I really enjoy the Can-O-Bliss. My favorite beer tonight was the Can-O-Bliss. A lot of factors could have contributed. Maybe it's the third beer I drank and I'm just done with it all. But the Can-O-Bliss expressed to me the most and clearest fresh hop flavors, which are things that I think about through IPAs and pales all the time. It was a broad range of bright flavor. You know, the coolest thing about Dale's was it was the balance, and it was the interaction between malt and hops that really worked very well there. And Dale's is a close second for me, but I would have to go 1, 2, and 3. Can-O, Dale's, and Oney. But I didn't drink a bad beer tonight. I really didn't. I drank some very unique and interesting beers that all showcased that the brewers over at Oskar know what the fuck they're doing when they put down a beer.
Peaches?
That they fucking do. I'd say my 1, 2, 3 for the night. Oney would actually probably be top of my list. Dale's right behind it, and Can-O-Bliss kind of third. Largely, I mean, I'm in the same boat as CJ. They're all fucking delicious beers, and clearly the guys at Oskar Blues are on point and doing everything so very right. The thing for me is just thinking about the one that I'm probably the most likely to reach for a 6-pack next time I'm in the store and everything. I don't drink a lot of IPAs at home. I don't drink a lot of super hefty beers, and that is the heftiest of the 3 that we had tonight. I'll have the occasional pint of it out at a bar, but that's just not the style that I reach for. So that's kind of why the Can-O-Bliss ends up on third instead of first for me. And the Oney, it's probably the next beer that I'm going to buy when I need to refill the cooler for going skiing, because that's a fucking delicious beer, and it's nice and it's light, and it's something I can get behind for doing the sports that I love to do. And then the Dale's is just a standard. It's a fucking good pale ale. But usually my fridge tends to have Mirror Pond in it just because I live in Bend, and that's just kind of the way I roll.
And to tag onto that, not to interrupt
you, Josh,
the Oney is the one beer I wish we could have had more
The Oney
fresh.
is the most likely next purchase for me out of the 3. Dale's being a close second on what I'd buy next. I don't think I'd really buy the Can-O-Bliss except getting a pint at Montana Tap House next time I come to visit you guys, because I like drinking it on tap. I love it on a pint. It's just not the thing that I reach for to like bring with me home.
I didn't mean to, but I talked over there. Is like the Oney is the one beer I wish we could have experienced at the freshness that you did. Both other beers, probably because of their higher alcohol and packaging, still really
probably
express
lend themselves better
good
holding
qualities.
better.
Yeah.
And I want to have this beer like as someone who brews, I want to have this beer like right off the bright tank to really see what they're getting. It was damn good. I'd drink it again, and I love that you want to take that shit up in the mountains. It's a delicious beer. I put it at the back of the list because it just did not give me, I think, everything that probably you got out of a
Right.
8 to 10 week fresher beer than we got.
Yeah.
And that's not anyone's. That's just
the way a cookie crumbles.
That's just the way.
Yeah.
All right, Walter Cronkite.
Thomas, what were yours? Where are you at on that?
Honestly, for me, I feel like it was a bit of a combination of both of your lists where the Dales ended up on the top of my list, but that's just because I'm a pale ale whore.
You know that's going to be in your fridge tomorrow anyway, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just gonna have pales.
Shit, there's
And
probably a
I
6-pack
love.
sitting in his fridge already. Like,
I finished that on New Year's Eve, man. I got myself a 6-pack of Dales for New Year's Eve last night. Yes, when this podcast comes out, you will hear it. It will be several days after the New Year, but last night was New Year's Eve for all of us, and I was drinking Dales. I love the Can-O-Bliss, and I love the 1E, but if I had to put them in an order from top to bottom, it would be Dales, the 1E, and then the Can-O-Bliss. Because the Can-O-Bliss is absolutely delicious, but I can't drink it all the time. It 7.2, big body flavor, big hop profile. Like
It's a rich beer.
It's a lot of beer.
Rich beer.
It's a lot of beer.
It was, the way that we experienced them, and we decided pre the show to really go through them pretty much from strength and intensity to lightest to heaviest. It's a heavy beer.
Yeah,
but man,
it's just a big
dries
beer.
out and feels so good.
It's so good.
Such a fun
But
drinker.
that's why I put Dale's up at the top, because I can drink that the wintertime, spring, summer, fall. I can drink that all year. The 1E, I would love to have out on the river and just chill and float with a nice 4% beer that I can crush throughout the day. If I've had a bad day at work, I'll probably grab a sixer of Can-O-Bliss over Dale's.
yeah.
But you guys both know, and our listeners both know, that my allegiances lie with pale ales. For me personally, I just think they're the best beers because there's a nice balance between hop bitterness, malt profile, yeast expression, and not
It's just a
attenuation.
good balance. It's not over the top on any one
Yeah,
end.
exactly. Good pale ales to me have all the things. You've got a good malt profile, you've got a good hop profile, and you've got great phenolic flavors coming from your yeasts. That to me is a good pale ale. Whereas like juicy IPAs like the Can-O-Bliss might be a little less on the yeast phenols and things like that, and more present on hop profiles. Where like stouts are more present on body and grist builds than they are on yeast and hop additions to the flavors of those beers. So that's why I personally like pales, is because you get a combination of all of the three most important things that come in making beer, and that's malt, hops, and yeast.
It's a really expressive style, and it's through all of modernization of brewing, it's remained a very expressive style, even if it's remained a relatively unpopular style, due to and I'll go out and say the ease of some other styles, approachability, and things like that. But
And I don't want to call people out, but I feel like
No,
the overuse of hops and things to hide off flavors in your beers is not going to lend you to make good beers.
It's not. I actually, the longer I've done it, I've now started to think that there's, for certain off flavors, at some point in time, you can't really get away with hiding. I mean, you have to be a good fermenter. You have to understand those things. Yeah. But coming back to Oskar Blues, what I will say, and it's funny because we all ranked them. We had a couple things in similar places, but we also had some things in drastically different places, and that's a wonderful thing to deal with personality and style and what we all like. All three of these beers, and I'm trying to take into account, the age and packaging and how we got them. That's part of tasting, because we did not get them fresh from the brewery, and unfortunately so. Oskar Blues, send us some beer, dude. We'll fucking do this episode again. It'd be great.
Yeah, send us
after COVID, we'll come down there and record an episode at your spot. Just pour us beer right off the bread.
Yeah, but send us some stuff off the Brewers tab. We'd love to review that.
All of these beers, and I do. It's a love-hate thing. Just like I would suppose with people in their bands and music, of certain breweries can really showcase a style that you almost can't get away from. And there's certain times when you can and should absolutely defend that as like it's a good fucking style. And there's certain times you're like, hey guys, try something new. This is not the latter. This is one of those times where at least the 3 hoppy beers that we drank, I can clearly see the intention through every flavor profile
Absolutely.
they went after, and every one of these beers is different. But there is a clean, precise flavor running through every one of them that makes them all really enjoyable beers. And I'm actually
there's a common ground between all
more
3 of
impressed
these
than
beers.
I thought I would be.
It's very minimalistic, and it's probably in like the way
Yeah.
they build their malt
Just
profiles.
very soft, very
Just-
soft adjustments.
But
So
there is a very soft crossover between all of these beers, while all of them are very drastically different flavor-wise.
They absolutely.
It's very interesting, and Oskar Blues is just fucking killing it. And I think with that, are we gonna cap this episode?
we should.
I think we
cap
should
it
wrap that
off.
shit.
We should cap this episode off. So, for those of us, or those of you that want to help us out, go to patreon.com/finalgravitypod, and you can join Fred, the blind brew guy, in helping support
Love you,
this
Fred.
podcast. Check out the Viking Peaches on Instagram. I have recently killed all of my socials personally, so I am no longer on the things, and
Going
neither
ghost.
is CJ. But still,
Not a thing for me.
go on and help us out, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Until
Fred, call us. Talk to us. We need voices.